I think I'm live. I see, ooh, there's lots of people waiting. Oh, that's awesome. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Magic of the Month class. How's everybody doing? Just gonna have a little sip of I'm drinking coffee tonight because I woke up extra early today because it was snowing and I was really, really excited about it. And I have I'm running on very little sleep, so we're drinking lots of caffeine today. All right. Let me check some comments over here. I can see everybody live. I can see everyone live on YouTube. Yeah, I saw. I see that there's been a lot of people finding blue star balloons lately. That's interesting and exciting. Yeah, it's exciting to see everybody in here. So I'm going to wait for a little bit. We'll let people kind of climb back in and join class. We'll wait for the stragglers. I don't know. It's weird. Our numbers, just like the watching numbers, just like changed dramatically, which is kind of strange. But we'll go with it. I don't know what that means. Just gonna go with it. So yeah, we'll wait for a little bit for everybody else to make it into class. But today we're going to be talking about Imbolc. And we're going to kind of break down the celebration and the festival. We'll talk a little bit about folklore, a little bit about history, but just generally the overall celebrations that we can kind of be doing during this time of year, and why the symbology of what's happening during the time of Imbolc is really beneficial for pretty much everyone. And I think I've talked about this before, but Imbolc is my favorite Sabbath. It's my favorite festival. It's my favorite celebration. To me, so first of all, I should say it's also the very first Sabbath or festival that I practiced when I was a wee young witch. When I first started practicing magic, I was really excited about the idea of celebrating festivals and all. Interestingly enough, Imbolc was the first one, so I was like super excited about it because it also is a celebration of new beginnings and new life, and just the kind of excitement and joy that builds up around new things. And the Imbolc is it's an interesting time of year. The time around Imbolc is interesting because we're still very much kind of being held by the winter weather, at the very least, in most places. And so that we still have a few weeks, a few months, if not, of pretty much cold weather and very wintry weather. But we're sort of starting to experience the first stages, the first signs of quickening in life are kind of rippling under the surface. So it's a really beautiful time of year for practicing magic, for taking some time to really spend quiet time with yourself or with other people who are magical, and really enjoying the time of year. So we're going to talk a lot about that today. And then what we're going to do is I have two very fun practical things that we're going to do together. So for this class, you're not going to need anything. I figured it'd probably just be easier for everybody to kind of watch me make what we're going to be making. We're going to be making two separate things and they'll go together. But yeah, I figured it'd be fun for you to watch me making it and then have at it. Make them yourselves. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be making Imbolc ice lanterns, which is like my favorite thing ever. I know it's cold outside. I know it's probably snowy or at the very least cold where you are, but they're so lovely, and they're so, just having one sit outside, specifically around that time of year, or if you're brave enough to let it melt, on a bigger plate or a platter or something in your house, if you're cool with that, you can do that too. So we're going to be making Imbolc ice lanterns. It will make sense in a minute. But we're also going to be making a really simple kind of powder. It's it's a thicker powder, but it is a powder that I like to use to dress any candles that I'll be working with during this specific celebration in this time of year. So we're going to be doing those two things today, and I'm pretty darn excited about it. Before we jump in, let's check these comments over here. Let's see. How's everybody doing? How's everybody? And happy full moon. How's everyone enjoying the full moon? It is a full moon, I think, in Cancer, right? Is everyone emotional? I saw something, or I heard something today that I thought was really beautiful. It was a TikTok, and it was someone who kind of worded it perfectly with it. Around this full moon, this Cancer full moon, if things are coming up to the surface, which they very likely are. We are also in the winter, and a lot of that stuff kind of bubbles up to the surface. If things are coming up to the surface for you, and you're not kind of stuffing them down or ignoring them, don't ignore them. And I was like, oh, that's such a perfect way of putting it. It's really a kind of opportunity to take a look at some of that stuff. So maybe if you are an emotional person and you're going through things right now, I feel very much like many people I know, and myself included, are kind of going through this very transformative time period. It feels transformative, spiritually transformative, emotionally, even just within our lives. So I really like the idea of kind of allowing this moon to kind of gently let some of that stuff come up to the surface. And once it's there, we have the opportunity to look at it. So let's not stuff it back down again. If you know what I'm trying to say. Yeah, a lot of people, everybody's saying very emotional, crying. It is. It's a very emotional one. It feels very like, I feel very sort of like introverted and pulled in, and anchored kind of in that space. But it's not a bad feeling. It's just a very emotional feeling. All right, let's get started. If this is your first Magic of the Month class, these are the notes. I use notes. I like using notes. They help keep me on task. I will go off on tangents, and notes help me keep my thoughts together. So I'm going to be looking at them a lot. I apologize. It's kind of just the way that I do things, but it's going to be helpful tonight because we're going to kind of be jumping around a little bit. We'll be staying within the conversation about Imbolc and what Imbolc can be a celebration for. But yeah, we're going to kind of talk about a lot of different things. Let me take one more sip of my coffee here. All right. So let's begin. So we're talking about Imbolc, as I mentioned a billion times, but Imbolc is a festival that begins sundown on February 1st, and sundown on February 1st, and then ends sundown on February 2nd. Usually, a lot of people, there's a lot of different, ways to celebrate, but usually a lot of people will kind of celebrate it within that 24-hour time span. It is a time where we can really hyper focus on some pretty simple ideas about the sun returning to us and the light returning to us, and the symbology behind the sun and the light returning to us, even though it may not really feel like it right now. We did just get a bunch of snow dumped on us for the first time this winter in Ohio. So it's definitely not feeling like spring is making itself known in any way, shape, or form here. But I promise you that it is. The cycle is beginning to move into those places. So in the Celtic seasonal calendar, I hear Gordon trying to get in the room. Imbolc marks the beginning of the lambing season. And, it was a time in the year where that was really happening as far as when we talk about the kind of that agricultural calendar. And that's why we often, when you look at Imbolc altars or any kind of art around this time of year, we'll often see lambs. We'll see sort of animals that we're familiar with as being like barnyard animals, but specifically lamb are lamb imagery is very, very, very prevalent during this time of year. So again, as I said, in the Celtic seasonal calendar, Imbolc marks the beginning of the lambing season and signals the beginning of spring. So it is a sign that we are finally moving our way towards spring. It is a sign that the stirrings of life are beginning to happen just under the surface. And, many of our ancestors would have known that because, again, lambing season had begun. So that means here we go. The cycle is now moving towards that warmer, life-giving seasons, those seasons specifically. Let me check comments before really quickly. Yeah, so so it comes from the original Irish word imbolc or imbolg. There's a couple different ways to pronounce it. I am probably butchering it. There's a few different pronunciations. If it's imbolc, it is essentially meaning in the belly. The other pronunciation or the other explanation that I have heard from many people, and is one that makes a lot of sense to me, is Imbolc, standing for use milk. So again, it's that hyper focus on the life just beginning to happen, beginning to show. It's starting to show itself in the natural world around us. In the animal kingdom, we're starting to see it beginning to wake up, I guess is a good way of putting it. So yes, all is pregnant, all is expectant during this time of year. There's an element of that newness that's still being protected, that newness that is still being kind of contained. And I like to think of this time of year as a private time of year. I think I talked about this a little bit before in a previous class, but it's the idea that when we have a new thing, when we have a new idea, it's good to protect it. And oftentimes that is because, let's say you have a new idea for a business or a new idea for a novel, whatever it is, when it's still in that stage, that incubator stage where it's baking, it's creating itself, it's kind of coming to life, it's sparkling to life. Sometimes when we get excited and we want to share that with other people, sometimes what can happen is all of other people will bring their kind of, it's a cool idea, or they won't have the same level of enthusiasm that you have about it, and you're still in that gentle kind of baking stage where the idea is still precious and it's still should be protected. It should be kind of held close to the chest. It should be cared for gently and not kind of, go look at this. It's not ready for that yet. And that's one of the things that I like to really focus on during this time of year, is the idea that maybe there are aspects of myself, maybe there are aspects of my spiritual practice, or maybe there are literal projects that I'm working on or ideas that I'm having that are still in that stage where we want to, protect them. We want to hold them as close to us as possible, because they're not quite ready to, be unleashed upon the world. And most of the time that's for our benefit, so that we don't experience, someone either downright kind of putting their nose up to the idea, or just not having the same kind of enthusiasm as we do. Plus, it's still in that stage where it's unfolding and it's transforming and it's changing and it's moving shape all the time. So the great thing about that is, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, the idea is that this is kind of a very private, very personal time of year, specifically within our own thoughts and within our own ideas. And so it kind of gives us a really nice moment before we move into spring and summer, when things begin to become, a lot more active, and we're not in our homes all the time, or maybe outside, and we're kind of spending more time in a social space. We have this moment here at Imbolc during this time of year to give ourselves that time to protect ourselves a little bit more time to isolate, a little bit more time to heal, a little bit more time to be precious with yourself, a little bit more time to be gentle, and to be gentle with the things that you love and care for, and specifically the things that you are kind of giving life to, you're creating. Again, whether those are spiritual ideas, maybe you're really interested in learning tarot and you don't know much about it yet. Maybe, being in those initial stages when you're first starting to learn something, sometimes some of us many of us can be sensitive about maybe not knowing as much as everyone else, and it can feel kind of overwhelming to think, oh, there's so many people out there who have, they know so much more of it about it than I do. But there's such a beautiful opportunity in the moment when we're giving life to something or we're creating something where, and it's still very much ours. It's still a precious thing to us, where we have the option to kind of be quiet about it and keep it to ourselves, which is kind of a nice thing, specifically at this time of year. So Julie says, this is my first class. Maybe I'm confused, but do we not use this stuff in the package? No, so each of the classes are about something. Usually the classes focus on the different festivals that happen throughout the wheel of the year, or will kind of bring in different ideas. I'm pretty much malleable with classes, and I let them kind of flow. So I try to, as much as possible, stick to the idea of, as we practice magic throughout the year, there are certain times of year where it is more beneficial for us to be practicing certain types of magic. We're able to kind of tap into a larger archetype, or a larger idea, or a larger energy that's kind of naturally manifesting around us. So I try to usually really hyper focus on that as much as possible. But if you have any questions, I'm always happy to answer. I should have mentioned this at the top of the class, but the way that we do this is pretty fluid. So if you have questions, just toss them into the chat. I'll do my best to check on Patreon for people who aren't using the YouTube chat. But yeah, happy to answer any questions about anything. But yeah, classes are usually kind of separate from the kits themselves, and just sort of add to what we're learning about magic as a whole. So where was I? All right, let's see, what do I have here? Yeah, so it's the start of the agricultural year, when the earth begins to warm up and everything begins to grow. We're right at the very, very tip of that. Lambs and other livestock start to be born. But it is a lovely moment in the calendar to celebrate in your own private way. So again, as I mentioned, this is to me, and it's interesting because they each one of the classes, or each one of the times of year that we have the opportunity to kind of go inward, or sometimes we think of them in terms of being like very winter centered. But I love Imbolc because, whereas when we would go inward at the beginning of winter, or maybe halfway through winter, we still know we have many, many, many weeks ahead of us. Imbolc is lovely because we still have the opportunity to turn inward, but we also have the opportunity to really give life to hope, because hope is on the horizon, or we know that spring is coming. We're starting to see it happen, even though there's still snow on the ground. So let me see. Reading your comments. I'm not good at reading comments, and also I'm not good at reading the comments and trying to answer them at the same time. Okay, so where was I? Yeah, so it is a promise of renewal, as we've talked about many times, hidden potential. The earth is awakening around us, so we have that life force energy that we can connect with. So any rituals that you want to focus on that have to do with new beginnings, that have to do with hope, that have to do with the excitement of hope and joy, those are really, really lovely rituals to focus on during this time of year. Specifically ones that have to do with new beginnings. We set a lot of intentions, many of us around Yule. And so now we have the opportunity to kind of reset those intentions, rethink about those intentions, and we're going to start really, bringing some of that to life around us. So it's a time to let go of the past. It's wonderful. It's a wonderful time of year to really think of it in terms of like a fresh start. So if there are habits that maybe you have picked up throughout the winter that you really just don't want to bring with you, maybe it's, I don't know, whatever habits they would happen to be, it's a nice time of year to start thinking about maybe not bringing those with you into the next season. So start thinking about things that you don't want to bring with you. Maybe it is, negative self-talk, or maybe it's too much time on your phone, or whatever it would be for you personally. it's a nice time of year to kind of start thinking about letting go of some of those things, because we really just don't want to bring them with us into the next season. And that's mainly because the next few seasons this summer, our spring and summer, are busy. We become more active. So kind of dragging along a bad habit with us into the more active spaces is not always the best idea. I'm going to take a coffee break here. Diana says, good time to start manifesting. Absolutely. So it's a nice time to start setting intentions, to start setting, sending out your manifestations, things that you want to bring into your life, or just into your life. Any of those things that you want to see come to fruition throughout the spring and the late spring and summer, this is the time for it. And so we can really, really, really tap into that energy organically, because it's naturally happening in the natural world around us. It's happening in the earth, and it makes it a lot easier for us specifically to kind of get in touch with that cycle, so that we're as we move throughout the course of the year, magically and even just spiritually, we're kind of instantly and innately kind of connecting with where that cycle's headed. So again, we're in this stage right now where it's very cold outside. We're in our homes. We're in a state of introspection. We're in a state of inner thought. And we're kind of in the crone spaces. We're working through our own wisdom. We're, recognizing that we're, maybe starting to get sick of being inside a little bit, and that we're if anything, but I mean, like, just because of the weather itself, maybe we're a little bit sick of being trapped inside because it's cold. So we organically and naturally kind of connect with that on kind of an innate level. And that's moving into, again, towards Imbolc at the top of February, at the beginning of February. There's this glimmer of hope where we're like, yes, it's coming. Hope is coming. So as I said, it's a promise of renewal, hidden potential. The earth is awakening around us, and we can connect with that energy. It's part of us anyway. I think, intuitively feel that. Hope is here. So we welcome the growth of the returning light and witness the great cycle as it shifts again. So we're seeing another shift. And sometimes, throughout the course of the year, some of the shifts that we experience are a lot more dramatic than the shift that we kind of feel around Imbolc. Imbolc is an interesting time because, again, as I mentioned, we don't necessarily see the shift because we do have weeks of cold weather left. It's a subtle shift. And I think it's one that really many of us experience on an internal level. And, for people who are in the country, people who are kind of more embedded in nature, they people who live on farms, or people who are experiencing that level of nature, are really starting to see it sort of happen throughout the world, throughout their world. But for some of us, it's a little bit more subtle, and it's an internal kind of shift. It's an internal move towards that space of hope, kind of that quiet reverence for hope. Let me see. We are going to talk about one of my favorite goddesses tonight. I see Christine talking about learning about a specific goddess, and she literally told me in a dream that the invitation was just for me. That's really sweet. We're going to be talking about one of my favorite goddesses, one of my favorite archetypes today. Chris says, just went to the hills in NorCal and communicated with the cattle who graze there this afternoon. That's so sweet. I love that so much. Okay. So where was I? It's a time to let go, as I said, to look forward, to be excited about the future, to allow yourself to be excited about the future. I talk a lot about, specifically around midwinter, that sort of a promise has been made, that the natural world makes a promise with us at midwinter around Yule, where we recognize that we are cheering the sun on. The sun will have a triumphant return. It will return to us, and the light will return to us, and life will become a little bit easier, a little bit more comfortable, a little bit warmer. You know, there's food will naturally grow around us, and it won't be, you know, freezing cold outside and covered in ice and kind of a miserable experience for people who hate the winter. I love the winter. But there's a hope, there's a promise there at Yule and around midwinter where we know the sun is going to start returning. Imbolc is the first sign that that promise is being made good on. And it's a lovely kind of moment of recognition that feels as if the natural world is recognizing the hope that we have for our own futures and for the future of the natural world. So yeah, so here the divine spark that's born at midwinter is growing and the natural world is beginning to wake up. So remember the intentions that we set. Remember any intentions that you set around midwinter, around Yule, anything that you really wanted and hoped to happen and to come into fruition in the coming year. This is another nice time to sort of bring those thoughts back up into the forefront of your mind. Maybe go back if you're a journaler and look at what you journaled. Or maybe it's a great idea to start journaling and keep track and get really clear about what it is that you're trying to kind of bring out and give life to. So Imbolc is traditionally a great festival, and it honors, this is the goddess that we're going to be talking a little bit about today. It honors the Celtic goddess Bridget. Bridget has many different pronunciations. She goes by Bridget, Bridie, Brigantia, Brigitte. There are a lot of different pronunciations for this lovely, lovely goddess. Actually, wore a very specific necklace that I'll be talking a little bit about today that has a lot to do with Bridget, who I love very, very much. So Imbolc, as I said, is traditionally a great festival, honors the Celtic goddess Bridget. She is so loved, and she has always been so loved by pagans and many, many different people. That she was so loved, in fact, that the Christian church knew that they could not untangle her from people, so they made her Saint Bridget. So yes, Saint Bridget is in many ways, shapes, and forms the goddess Bridget, and she's such a loved goddess that they knew that there was a very little likelihood that they were going to be able to untangle her. So there she is. So let's see what I have here. Yes, so she is she's the goddess of, so she's a triple goddess. Usually around this time of year, she is looked at in her maiden form. So she is a goddess of healing, poetry, metal smithing, which I think is kind of interesting. She's a goddess of many, many different things. And she really is hyper connected to this time of year. And we really feel her strongly during this time of year. Many people do. So let's see what I have here. Yeah, so Bridget brings fertility to the land, its people. She's closely connected to midwives and newborn babies. She's a triple goddess at Imbolc. She is her maiden aspect. Imbolc is a time of magic that is related to the feminine. Yay! Allison says, Bridget came up in my goddess oracle poll this morning. I love Bridget. Yes, so it's a magical time of year connected to the feminine aspects of the goddess, specifically new beginnings, those maiden archetypes. And so the fun thing about archetypes, specifically when we talk about maiden archetypes, is we don't even really, it depends on how we want to look at it, but we can really kind of look at it in terms of those specific aspects. So we're not necessarily talking in some cases about gender specific things, but to some people they will be talking specifically about gender specific things. What we're really looking at here is the symbology. What is the symbology there? So again, it's youth, right? It's the beginning of something. It's that excitement. It's that untapped energy, that joy, the bubbly happiness, all of those things that kind of exist within that specific archetype, which is something that every single one of us can tap into. Yeah. Brian says, in the Irish pantheon, Bridget is thought to be the daughter of Dagda and the Morrigan. She is a very, very fantastic and wonderful goddess. And the Celtic pantheons are pantheon is very interesting. Okay, where am I? Let's see. Oh, this was what I was going to talk about. She is also connected to wells and flowing water, naturally flowing water. And so the necklace that I wore specifically today is a kind of recreation of the wellhead at Chalice Well in Glastonbury, which is, I have not visited. Glastonbury is a place that I've not had the opportunity to visit yet. I would love to. But there is a beautiful, and again, spend some time if you're interested in any of the Celtic legends and myths. Spend some time, if you haven't already, looking into the history of Glastonbury. It's a unbelievably beautiful place, and Chalice Well is one of the places that I've always dreamt of being able to visit. It is incredibly beautiful. And many people feel the connection to Bridget there, and just her energy in and around that specific area. Anyway, so let's see, where was I? I was going to say something else. Oh, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, so the magic of the months that are getting ready to ship out, the Blackthorn, which will be included in everybody's goodies, is also from Glastonbury. All the Blackthorn was harvested naturally in Glastonbury and sent to me, and it is incredibly beautiful. It smells so good. You'll be able to use it with lots of different kinds of rituals, but it's lovely, and it just has such good energy to it. I can't wait for everyone to get it. I'm so excited. And yeah, Chalice Well has been a dream of mine forever. I've not had the chance. The last time we were in England, I didn't get the chance to go. Maybe someday. Has anybody ever been to Chalice Well or the tour? It looks so beautiful. Oh, a bunch of people. I'm so jealous. It's pretty great. And we're going to talk. I don't want to give too many spoilers away, but when I send everything, which should be relatively soon, actually, the instructions, as we send every single month, the instructions are going to have a little kind of write up about the history of Glastonbury. I mean, if I can even attempt to boil it down into a little section. But to kind of explain why it's such a lovely thing, and why Glastonbury is so magical, and specifically why Blackthorn is such a magical plant to work with, and it's an incredible thing to be able to kind of work with in its natural form. It's pretty exciting. Oh, I would love to go to Chalice Well. It looks amazing. My friend Laura lived, I don't know if she still lives in Glastonbury, and she spends a lot of time at Chalice Well, a lot of time on the tour, and it just looks really beautiful, or near the tour. Okay, so as I was saying, Imbolc is a time of magic, that kind of magical energy that just sort of, you can feel it. It's right there under the surface. It is a good time to focus on divination. Again, we're talking a little bit about, the feminine aspect here, and pulling in, if you're the kind of person who's been working on divination, if you're the kind of person who has been trying to develop your psychic abilities, if you've been trying to learn tarot, if you've been trying to work with the oracle decks, any kind of form of divination, it's a nice time of year to kind of tap into that a little bit, and to give a little bit more of that time, give a little bit more of that life to developing that aspect of yourself. I'm reading comments. I'm sorry. That's so cool. Okay, so where was I? It's a good time to focus on divination, increasing your own magical gifts and abilities. I like to spend a lot of time in meditation during this time of year, as much as I possibly can. I like to dream journal a lot during this time of year because I always find that my dreams, as weird as they are, tend to, specifically around Imbolc, really kind of give me some weird insights into myself, which I think is really interesting. It is also a time of year to eat food. It is time for kitchen witchery and for making meals with intention and making meals maybe with foods that are connected to our individual ancestry, which I think is really a lovely way to add to a lovely thing to add to our Imbolc altars. So let's see. What do I have? Celebration with food, hearth and home. It's really that kind of that homey sense. It's a nice time of year to bake breads, to make meals with kind of vegetables that will be growing very soon and that will be in our gardens very soon. Anything that we've kind of kept from the fall. So, any kind of comfort food is really, really lovely during this time of year. One of the things that I'm going to try to learn how to do this year successfully anyway is to make bannock. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I'm pretty sure that I am. It is a traditional, it's a traditional Scottish bread, but you make it in a cast iron skillet. And I am, I'm Scottish. My ancestors are, I'm a second generation Canadian, and all of my family are all Scottish. So I thought it would be really fun to learn how to make a food that is very kind of traditional to my ancestry, which I think is really cool. I've never done it before, so we'll see how it's going to go. I'm also not the greatest cook. That's usually what Greg is good at. But I really want to try at the very least to make some and just have it incorporated into my altar. So it's a nice time of year also making kind of family recipes. If you've got grandma's cookie recipe, that's, awesome. It's a good time of year to make it. If you've got, any kind of family, anything that feels comfort, it just brings you that sense of hope and joy and love. Ooh, dream sketches. That's a freaking cool idea. That's a really cool idea. I would love to see those. I wish I was more artistically inclined, but I am not. It's not that I'm not good at it. I'm just not. It's nothing. It's just sort of I think probably the way everyone can. So, but that would be very cool. I would love to see that. Yeah, I will absolutely post my my bannock bread afterwards because it's either going to work really well and it's going to be great. Apparently, they're kind of they look like scones, sort of. So you can have them with a jam or you can have them with something savory. Chris just ordered a bunch of seeds, wildflowers back in the yard. We're going to talk a little bit about that in a minute. But yeah, seed collection during this time of year, beginning to kind of plant seeds indoors that you're going to transfer to your gardens outside once it gets warm. It's a really nice time. Again, we're bringing hope. If you want to have, let's say this is the time of year or this year you want to have a little herb garden or something that you can actually grow your own herbs and flowers. It's a nice time of year to maybe start collecting some of those seeds and maybe looking into how to properly plant them, maybe, what time of the year do they like to be planted, and really put some of that intention into it. These are your witchy, plants and your herbs and the things that you're going to work with in a magical space. So you can kind of bring that intention into the process too. One of the things that you can do that's really fun is if you want to do something like that and you're going to kind of plant seeds inside, paint some sigils underneath on the bottom of the bucket that you're going to be using or the little tray that you're going to be using for protection, growing healthy, and just kind of try to incorporate some magic into that process too. Not that growing things isn't a magical process in and of itself. Okay. So what we're going to talk about next is one of my favorite things that we talk about all the time. We're going to do our due diligence and we're going to talk a few correspondence to Imbolc because, as I mentioned, most of us magic people love our table of correspondence. We love obsessing over them. We like putting them in our grimoires and our books of shadows and our notes, keeping track of them. We love a good correspondence. So I have a couple different things, a few different correspondence to talk about, two of which are the trees that are associated with Imbolc, because we are talking about a Celtic festival. So let's talk about two of the trees that exist in the OM, in the Celtic tree alphabet, which is actually, I have my OM. Where is it? They're over there. Darn it. They're all the way on the other side of the room. But I will happily post a photo of my OM staves that I did get when I was in was it in England? Yeah, England last year, not before the pandemic. I don't even know what year we're in anymore. Okay, so two of the trees associated with Imbolc in the OM, which is again the Celtic tree alphabet. We're going to talk about rowan and we're going to talk about willow. So rowan, associated with Imbolc, it is a tree usually assigned to this time of year in the Celtic tree alphabet, which is often referred to as the OM, not the Ogam or the Gahogam, the OM. It is a long association with the maiden aspect of the triple goddess. It's also known as a quickening tree, which I didn't know. I read that today and I thought it was so interesting. And it's associated with serpents, which I also thought was really interesting. Hold on, let me check comments. I realize I'm just zooming past everybody here. Brian saw bees zooming around the lavender. That's so amazing. Oh, it's tough. So I've always read tarot. I mostly work with the Rider-Waite system. I recently started to learn the Thoth deck, which is difficult, interesting, and challenging. But I'm very comfortable with the Rider-Waite system and tarot just in general. And so, all right, I'm going to take a little tangent. Come with me on this tangent. Let's have a sip of coffee. So my dad was adopted. And he, not until very recently, he really wasn't very interested in finding his parents, his biological parents, which my sister and I we totally respected it. We understood, it's not something that he was interested in doing. And so, but one of the things that I did as someone who obviously loves ancestry and ancestral work and learning about different cultures and other and just people's ancestry in general. I obviously wanted to know what half of my ancestry was, because my mom's side of the family is Irish, and a little English, and so I was really curious. My whole life I was always very curious about finding where that part of me came from, because it was literally half of me. So I want to say it was like 6 months before the pandemic actually started. It would have been because it was for my birthday. Greg got me I think there's 23andMe. And so this is the first time I've ever done any kind of like ancestral DNA thing. And I sent my stuff in, came back all Scottish, which is very cool because I love Scotland and I love Scottish history, and I love obviously magic and fae lore, and the folklore around Scotland just in general is my favorite. And so I was absolutely super excited, and that alone was very satisfying for me. But I also found my dad's sister. So I matched at a very high percentage with a lady from Edinburgh. And she turns out that she's my dad's biological sister, and my father's family live in Edinburgh and Glasgow. So my dad's whole entire family still live in Scotland. And he was at this point now, he was very excited about meeting his sister, and he found out that he had a brother and kind of learning about his family. But so it was a very long process for me, because I was probably like 38 before I knew anything about an entire half of my ancestry. So I've gone pretty ham when it comes to learning about Scottish magic and Scottish folklore, and it is absolutely fascinating. So um, yeah, so that's it tends to be something that I'm always really, really interested in, and is one of the reasons why I you know, wanted to start working with the OM and get to know the OM a little bit more, and try to incorporate it into my practice. Because it was something that I was always, I love, obviously love nature. Why wouldn't I want to learn a form of divination that literally is, working with trees? That's like my dream. But I had just never made the full on connection. So when we went to England before the pandemic, there was a lovely lady at the event that we were doing, and she had two sets of almond staves, and she had collected each stave from each tree herself. She had hand carved it, and she was just like the loveliest human being on the planet. So I bought my own first and only set of almond staves that I work with now, and I was lucky enough that it was the beginning of the trip, so I got to bring them, to many stone circles and to Stonehenge, and just let them soak up all that good energy. So, um, uh, but yes, the OM is difficult. It's hard, specifically if you're someone who's very, tarot minded and you're used to working with tarot. It can be like very confusing. But yeah, so we're talking about Rowan and Willow, which are also very cute names for pets and or children. So a sprig of rowan can be put near the door of your home, or a sprig worn for protection. I have a little bit of rowan in here. Rowan berries have 5 pointed stars, just like a pentagram, which is very cute. So the next one would be willow, as we mentioned, which is the 4th tree in the Celtic alphabet. Is also associated with a maiden. Willow is a great shapeshifter of consciousness and emotion. Again, we were talking about tapping into divination and tapping into kind of connecting with divination more. Maybe it's time, if this resonates with you, maybe there's a willow somewhere in your neighborhood that you can go and spend some time with. Go and, let's maybe not trespass on neighbor's property, but if you can go and spend some time with some lovely willow trees. Gordon is literally pushing the door open right now. You're a machine, Gordy. So its branches are flexible. It expresses movement and change. It is a great guide for many of us when it comes to kind of regulating our emotions and learning how to go with the flow, learning how to become more resilient and a little bit more resourceful. It is a tree of enchantment and dreaming and enchanting, and it is a very, very magical tree. Obviously, all you have to do is look at a willow tree to tell that it is an incredibly enchanting tree. And it inspires leaps of imagination. It's such a magical tree. So if you do have the opportunity to spend some time with a rowan or a willow, I think this is a nice time of year to do that. And maybe you can even harvest some branches that have fallen under the tree. Leave a little something sparkly, maybe some coins, or even some food, natural food for the aminals who live in the trees. But it's a nice time of year to connect with those 2 trees specifically. My husband's maternal side is the Scottish Camel clan. I found through my dad that I am the Stuart clan, which I think is really cool. I actually want to figure out what our tartan looks like so that I can have like a shawl made, and then I can just pretend that I'm Claire in Outlander all day long and just walk around. I should get a Frasier tartan. Any Outlander fans out there? Anybody? So it's actually Stewart, Stewart. I would love to. I think the tartan, if I'm not wrong, believe that it's like a reddish tartan. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. Other Stewart clan. That's so exciting. That's really cool. That's so cool. I love that. There's many of us. I mean, Scots. This people of Scottish heritage are we are magical people. We really are. And I'm glad I also do have some Outlander fans out there because Outlander is my jam. I'm obsessed with it. Full Dark is drumming on Dad's side. That's so cool. Oh my god. So I've not been to Scotland, and um, I really, 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 really want to go. It would be, I probably would just cry the whole time, but I absolutely want to go so bad. That's so funny. That's really cool. I know. I'm stuck on the Netflix Outlander rotation. So I've only seen up to season 4, and so I'm like, I'm sure like many people, I have obsessions with shows where like I just watch them forever, and I like Outlander is my, as weird as it sounds, considering there are like 10-minute long bang sessions in like every episode. Outlander is my comfort show. It's just like it's my favorite thing ever. But yeah, I've only seen up to season 4. I've not read the books either, which I probably should do, but I'm kind of like, I'm finishing the first book of Dune, and I just started the first book of the Witcher series, which I'm really loving. Witcher is another of my absolute obsessions. Victoria says the books are very rapey. Yeah, I can imagine that they are. The show is also pretty, there's a lot of that. Oh gosh. My Scottish boss took me to Scotland so we could trace our roots. That's so freaking cool. Wow, that's really neat. Super jelly. Okay, so the herbs associated with Imbolc. We're going to talk about a few. Some of them are will be more common. Some of them you may have never heard of before. So one specifically we're going to talk about is blackberry, which is sacred to Bridget. The leaves and the berries are used to attract prosperity and healing. It is associated with a goddess, many different goddesses actually, and it belongs to the planetary sphere of Venus, which is again very, very feminine. Coltsfoot is another one we'll talk about again because of its association to Bridget. Again, associated with Venus, moves your emotions, physical stagnation. The energy of movement kind of flows very easily when working with Coltsfoot. And to piggyback off of that, ginger is another lovely, lovely root and to work with during this time of year. Not only because it is very magical and it stimulates magic, it kind of like it really gives it that punch. But it also is warming to our bodies, to our senses. It smells great. It tastes really delicious, and it kind of just like it's like a little fire in your body. So that's a really nice one. The other few that I have included here are really kind of very similar, but they uplift our energy. So that if you're the kind of person who really experiences seasonal depression, and I know it can really hit hard, specifically near the middle, closer to the end of winter, because we're just like, all right, I'm over it already. You can work with basil, rosemary, and cinnamon, and they are just uplifting. They're mood enhancing. They will always bring kind of a lot of joy to your energy, but also just to your body. They smell really great working together as a team, and they are nice to burn and to work with a lot during that time of year, or this time of year. So if you're going to, I have a list here. We're going to talk about a few easy ways to celebrate Imbolc, and I have a few different ideas. But one of the things that I wanted to include here really quickly was just a very quick list of altar inspiration. So I right now am kind of moving. I haven't quite started thinking or putting up my Imbolc altars quite yet. And I'm just sort of like letting that energy sort of, spread a little bit and kind of permeate. So we're just sort of working with this big ass selenite tower right now, which is kind of, really, it's one of my favorite. It's my baby. It's one of my favorites. But I do have a little list of ideas for things that you can incorporate onto an altar that is dedicated to Imbolc. And if you decide to do that. Again, remember, Altars can be as simple as a corner of the desk in your office at work, or a corner of your side table, or it can be huge and elaborate. It's completely up to you. It's all about what your comfort level is. There's no wrong way to do it. And as I've mentioned before, the most important aspect, or the most important thing to bring to the practice of working with altars, is really just play. Like, let yourself play and have fun. Don't get too worried about the placement of things. Initially, just really let yourself, let that inner child come out and really play as much as possible. So a few things to consider when we talk about inspiration for Imbolc altar. Colors, obviously white, red, orange, specifically in candles. Obviously lighting of candles is very important, and is seen quite a bit in many different Imbolc rituals. Candles being the representation of like the light coming back, or the light being around us. So, and also candle masks. But candles of any one of those colors are really lovely to include. Any kind of sun symbology. So it can be something as simple as, a picture of the sun, or anything that just represents the sun to you. You can, if you want, you can just stick with something as simple as oranges. Oranges are really nice representations. Fountains are really lovely. Again, talking about, Bridget, as much as we have, having some sort of flowing water might be a nice option. I love, I have a few, and they're supposed to be in gardens, but I don't put them in gardens, but I have a few indoor, outdoor fountains that are really nice to kind of have as a centerpiece of your altar, specifically your Imbolc altar, just as holding space for that energy of motion and the excitement of new beginnings, freshness, purification. So having that water kind of always going is really nice. Plus it brings in a lot of those energies that, again, we talked about being associated with Bridget. So early greens are really nice options. Anything that'll grow, that will be the first to grow from the garden in the spring, are nice to have on the altar. So things like garlic, things that will grow pretty naturally and organically, are nice to have as representations. You can, if you're a fan of the altar cloth, as I am, blue is a really nice color, again, representing water, but you can kind of stick to yellows, oranges, anything that really represents the sun. So the other things, if you're a crystal person, you can work with specifically crystals that are associated with the sun. So citrine, sunstone, garnet, anything that has that correlation to the sun is also nice. So if you are just a crystal person and you've got tons of crystals, you could do a crystal grid on your altar, including a couple different things. You could just incorporate all of the things that I mentioned in there. But yeah, the bottom line is really, it is also about like what you want and what feels right for you. So maybe spend some time scrolling Instagram and look at Imbolc altars and see if what people's Imbolc altars look like, and maybe you'll get a kind of tingling of inspiration. But always remember, just let yourself play and have fun. Let's see. Funny story about citrine. I only have 2 or 3 pieces of natural citrine, because most of the citrine, I could go off, and I think I've done a class on crystals. I'm pretty sure I have a workshop that I've done on crystals, but I can go off on crystal lore all day long, because again, I love crystals and I work with them as much as I can. But citrine is a really funny one, because normally when you find it out in the world, it's not actually natural citrine, it is man-made citrine. So citrine occurs when amethyst is heated to an unbelievable temperature. So naturally occurring citrine was once amethyst that was kind of baked within the earth, and it eventually, over many years, becomes citrine. And when you look at it, it actually has it's not as bright and kind of bright yellow as you see when you see naturally occurring citrine. It's very it's a color that's funny because I think most people who maybe don't know a lot about crystals probably wouldn't reach for it because it's almost a brownish yellow color. It's not quite as bright and pretty as the man-made citrine. And so, yeah, not talking smack about man-made citrine. In order for it to become citrine, it had to go through the same process. It just happened outside of the earth, which is kind of interesting. And most people don't know that. Yeah, it has like a greenish kind of yellow hue. It's like a very, I wish it was in here. It's in the other room. But it's a really interesting energy too. It's a different, to me, it kind of feels a little bit different. Okay, so easy ways to celebrate Imbolc, and then we're going to get into our practical. So a few of the things that I have listed here are, again, as we talked about earlier, visiting water, spending some time with water. Maybe you don't have the time to, or you don't have the space to do a ritual or to have an altar. That's okay. You absolutely still have plenty of ways that you can connect with the energy of Imbolc. And one of them is to visit natural water streams. If you have, the access to waterfalls or even wells or sacred sites that have to do with water, it's a really nice time of year to go and visit those. So I have traditionally Imbolc was a time for visiting holy water and holy wells, both to purify the self and to purify the inner self and the outer self. So maybe you can set off on an adventure with your family or your friends, or even just by yourself to a local park that has a stream that flows through it, or a local hiking trail that might have a little waterfall, or again, a sacred site if you have access to something like that. And it would be a nice time of year to maybe collect some water with that intention, with that purification in mind, and you'll be able to use that water and rituals throughout the course of the next year if you want, as long as you make sure to label where and when and how you got your water. And again, it's always nice to leave a little offerings. I like to leave carrots and fruits and vegetables, things that are safe for the environment, things that won't, be technically pollution or anything like that, but also food for animals. So I always bring like a little baggie of like apple slices and carrots and all that kind of good stuff that I can leave behind. Whenever I take something from nature, I like to give something back. So maybe it is a cute time of year to go and spend some time at any kind of naturally occurring water system that's near you, and really think about that adventure in terms of the inspiration behind why you're going there, which is again to really connect with that Imbolc energy. So a few of the things that I wrote down, and it was something that I actually experienced when we were in England. One of the things that people will do often close to sacred, it happens more around sacred sites, but you'll still see them, is people will dip ribbons into water, into springs or into waterfall, any kind of naturally flowing water, and then tie them to a tree, specifically if it's a tree that is, close to sacred sites. Obviously, then those trees become part of the lore and the folklore, and they become sacred in and of themselves. So maybe there's a biodegradable alternative to ribbon that we could, tie to trees after dipping them in water. There's lots of fun little practices that are magical practices that are associated with water and the act of tying things to trees and adding things to trees, which I think is really cool. Okay. And again, as I mentioned, always thank the spirits and all of the energies that are also coexisting within those spaces, and leaving them a little something is always a nice way to do that, whether it is leaving food for the animals, or maybe a coin or two for the fae folk, or for any kind of intelligence that happens to be existing within that space. It's always nice to say thank you to have a moment of reflection and acknowledgement whenever you're spending time sacredly in nature. So the next one that I have is feast and fire. So as we mentioned, eating food is a lovely thing to do during this time of year, and burning shit. It's always a really nice thing to do. Burning candles, burning incense, having bonfires, having fire around you while you eat food. It's tap into your inner witcher and embrace that part of yourself that wants to, eat food and burn things, and recognize the transformation, the beautiful transformation that fire can create for us. Burning shit is fun. I'm a Leo. I can't help it. I love burning shit. It's my favorite. I have this really hilarious picture of me. We actually got framed in the house, and it's a picture of me when I was like 6 at a campfire. And I'm literally like, I'm mesmerized. There's this huge bonfire, and I'm like in the background, and I'm just like just completely, I was a little 6-year-old witch just watching the flames and like reading. I was pulling imagery from the flames, but I've always been fascinated with fire and watching it and being with it. And it is a powerful transformation, transformative element. And it's a beautiful time of year to really think about that. Yeah. Where was I? Yeah. So eating things and burning things. Yeah. So another Imbolc tradition, lighting fires. Fire is not only celebrated around this time of year, it is associated with Bridget and many of the different things that have close ties with Imbolc specifically. In the Christian calendar, Imbolc is often referred to, or this time of year is often referred to as candle mass. Candles are lit. In many different cultures around this time of year, fire is very, very important. And so having a bonfire, if you have the access to having fire outdoors, or burning candles, or anything that involves the act of working alongside fire, is a really lovely practice and a really simple way to connect with this time of year and to connect with Imbolc. Fire is the best. So lighting fires with family and friends, sharing time with one another around fire, allowing fire to kind of be at the core of your Imbolc celebrations is a powerful thing to do. And you're really just inviting that transformative energy to kind of coexist with you. Yes, so feasting, making family meals, making meals associated with your ancestry is really great, regardless of whether you come from Celtic descent or not. Just any kind of family associations to food and hearth and home, and that kind of stuff can be very fun. And so like maybe try something that I'm doing. Like maybe you're Italian or you're of Italian descent, and there's a meal that you've never made for yourself or for your family that you've always thought about doing. This is a really great time of year to try something like that. You can do it from a place of intention. You can do it from a place of magical recognition, but then you also get to eat it, which is really fun. Let me read these comments. I love that you love the frosted bottle. Isn't that the cutest thing ever? It took me forever to find them, but I was so excited, and I really it's so funny because the frosted bottle came to me in a dream. I was standing somewhere, and the warm kind of almost greeny yellow light of sun was like coming through a frosted window. And when I woke up the next morning, I was like, oh my God, I need to find a bottle that's like that, so that it kind of recreates the same light kind of coming through. So yeah, I'm glad everybody liked their bottles from last month. They were so beautiful. And I mean, it smells pretty good too. Cute. Yeah. Try making food. Try making something that is associated with your ancestry. If you don't have a great relationship with your family, that's absolutely fine too. You can make something from again, here, I'm going to just be a nerd, but like, because this is currently my new obsession. Witcher has a cookbook. They have literally a cookbook dedicated to the food that it appears in the series Witcher or in the books. So maybe there's something in there that you think, holy shit, this would be really fun to try to make. I know that Lord of the Rings has one. I know that Outlander has one. Maybe there's something that you're super into that you can kind of like try to recreate. Maybe you're not interested in your ancestry. I totally understand that. But maybe there's something that you geek out about that you really love. And it's just a time of year to try new things and to let yourself kind of experiment a little bit, to kind of get out of your own head, I think is the best way to put it, because we've spent all winter long in our own heads. Imbolc gives us this opportunity to kind of go, ooh, it's that spark of excitement and that the joy of this time of year. So trying something new and pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone a little bit is sometimes a really, really simple, but incredibly powerful way to celebrate this time of year. And it can be something as simple as cooking a meal you've never cooked before, or trying something you've never tried before. Exactly. Game of Thrones has one. Maybe there's something you're just super into and you would much rather try something from that than you would anything else. And if that's the case, I totally understand and I'm with you. And I think that that's super fun. Okay. So let me finish this off here. Yeah. So again, as I mentioned, feasting, spend time feasting, spend time cooking and in your kitchen and near, the seat of warmth in your home, really. So let's get our hands a little dirty. Let's start with, I think I'm going to start actually backwards. I'm going to make the dressing for the candle first. So the way that I'm going to do this is I'm going to set my notes over here so I can still see them. Oh God, they almost fell on the floor. Okay. Get this coffee out of the way. Now that it's nice and cold, and we'll see if we can get a bit. Yes, good. We can get the table. Okay, good. All right. So the first thing that we're going to make is we're going to make what we're going to essentially be dressing our candles with. And so the dressing of candles, just for reference, is the act of kind of adding something to the candle. So if you have a candle, I have literally got examples here so that you know what I'm talking about. If you have a candle that has not been dressed, you probably just have a pretty simple candle. If you have a candle that has been dressed, it will likely look like this. Pardon my chipped nail polish. I need the Outlander cookbook too. I know I've seen it out there, and it looks really fun. Although the problem with it is a lot of it's probably meat, and I don't eat meat. Maybe there's I can do a vegan alternative. I wish there was a vegan alternative to the giant turkey leg at the Ren Fair. I would love that, because what we usually do is they have corn, but you're like, I want to feel like a friggin' Viking. I want a giant turkey leg, and I just want to I want to feel like a shield maiden. You know what I mean? I want them to make a vegetarian version of that. You can just fake the whole thing, just stick it on there, just fake it for me. They have giant tofu turkey legs. What? No. Okay, you just literally solved all my problems right there. Vegetarian TikTok. Oh my God. Okay. Mulled wine. Exactly. I want to be loud and see, everyone always jokes that again, I love Lord of the Rings, obsessed with Lord of the Rings, and a huge Lord of the Rings dork. Everyone always tells me, oh, you'd be an elf. No way. I'd be a dwarf. I'd be hanging with Gimli and the dwarves so hard, because I am a dwarf. If you can imagine, anytime we're shooting Hellier, it's I'm with a bunch of elves and Aragorn, and I'm Gimli, and I'm just running in the back, just wait for me, you guys. I'm literally, I love dwarves. Hobbits, yes. I love hobbits as well, but I'm too loud to be a hobbit. I'm definitely a dwarf. And the lady dwarves have beards, so I'm all for that too. Okay, so what we're going to be doing is we're basically going to be creating what we're going to be dressing our candle with. So we have our bare candle right now. It's not a bear candle. It's just a nude candle. It's a nudity candle. I'm going to grab this bad boy here. Oh, God. Mortar and pestle. So we're going to be crushing some stuff up because the rule of thumb when we add things to candles, not flammable. And if we are adding things that are potentially flammable, we want to try to crush them down as much as possible. And we want to be very mindful about how much we add to our candle. You don't have to put, I see people who add like ass loads of things. And every time I see them, I'm just like, that's fire hazard. Like my dad is also a firefighter, or he was a firefighter before he retired. So like, I literally just like go, oh God, oh, please always remember to watch your candles. I have to approve answers that have words like sexy in them. That's so crazy. Okay. So what I'm going to be adding to this is, what did we decide? I'm going to add some blackthorn. So I'm going to be doing a pinch because I'm only going to be dressing one candle right now. So we're going to do literally a little pinch. So you guys can actually see this. There we go. Little pinch, and it's in. So we're adding blackthorn, which is also known, interestingly enough, you will learn more about it very soon, but it is also known as crone of the woods, which I think is the coolest name ever. We're adding blackthorn specifically to protect our hopes. So remember when we talked earlier in class about the idea that our hopes and dreams are very precious right now. They are very, very precious. They are very new, and we really need to protect them as much as we can. So we're adding our blackthorn to do that very thing. It is going to help protect our hopes and dreams. And it is also, interestingly enough, blackthorn is also intimately tied to initiations. So if we're initiating a bunch of new energy here at Imbolc, it is also it's doing two jobs for us. So we're going to add our blackthorn first because that's really the backbone of what we're doing. There are, I always tell people to go with your instincts when it comes to how and when. There are a lot of ways that, and books and references that you can look into, whether how many times you're crushing your herbs and which direction your mortar and pestle is going, or this guy is going in. And there's a lot of, if you want to get that granular, you absolutely can. But if you want to keep it simple, and we're just going to kind of keep it simple tonight, I'm going to add the blackthorn first because, again, I want it to be the backbone of this specific powder, this specific blend that we're going to be making. So the next thing we're going to add is angelica root. It is also known as archangel root, which I think is really cool. And what was the other? Oh, Holy Ghost root, it sounds pretty metal, which is kind of awesome. So is believed to be a really powerful guardian healer. It is a root that specifically is known for warding off like bad energy, bad luck, any of that kind of stuff that you want to get rid of. So we're going to add a pinch of that. Again, I'm only adding a little bit because this is going to be going on one candle. And the last thing that we're going to add to this specific little blend is going to be bay. I'm not going to add the whole thing. I'm going to add a piece. It is often wonderfully known for being used in wish magic, any kind of manifestation magic, any of that kind of good stuff. So we have these three badasses, and they're all working together, and they're working individually. I always mess it up. I think you're right. I think this is the mortar and this is the pestle. Someone I saw ask earlier, Greg found this for me at a thrift store a few years ago, and it's like 100 years old, and it belonged to a pharmacist. It was what like an old-timey pharmacist used to grind up medicine. And it was like just sitting all by itself, all sad. Nobody really cared about it. I think it was like $10 or something like that. So next what we're going to do is we're going to crush the shit out of this. And so at this point, one of the things I do like to do is think a little bit about what we're doing. So we're really creating this candle. The purpose of creation of this candle is that it's going to, number one, the light itself is going to stand for the returning of the light that we talked a little bit about earlier. That spark, that beginning, that the spark of a new idea or a new thought. But it also is really going to light the way for our future, for all of our hopes and dreams that we've been thinking so much about. It's going to light the way for those manifestations. So we're also thinking about that when we're grinding, because the action itself of grinding, we're putting our physical energy into doing this. This is magical. Really what we're doing here is we are imbuing, and we talk about imbuing a lot in Magic of the Month. We're imbuing the contents of what's inside of our mortar and pestle. As we are grinding, we're using our physical energy and we're pushing it into each one of the corners of all of the different kinds of roots and herbs that we're working with here. So we are working with blackthorn, as I mentioned, will be headed to you very soon, but blackthorn, angelica root, and bay. So this is just one combination. Maybe for some reason, hold on, I have to approve because you said shut up, and apparently that's a bad word. All right. What was I going to say? Oh, so if this combination isn't singing to you and you just are like, yeah, maybe I want to try something different, you can add something different. You can substitute something. You can change it up and mix it up however you would like to. But keep in mind, the idea is that these three are kind of working together to help us bring about the intentions that we're setting, really manifesting the intentions that we're setting. And remember, again, as we're grinding, we're focusing on our wishes, on our hopes and dreams for the spring and summer, for the rest of the year. And we're knowing, we're confident that each one of these herbs and each one of the properties that are associated with it, the magical properties that are associated with it, are going to work to help us and to help us give that candle even more of a magical intent. So now that we have the goods ground and we have our candle, there's a lot of different things that you could do. For some people, they'll at this point like to add essential oils or different types of oils. You might want to carve something into the candle. You might want to place a crystal on it. Whatever you want to do to personalize the process, you can absolutely do that. As far as what we're doing today, because these candles, this is one that I did earlier, but these candles are going to go inside of our lanterns once our lanterns are nice and frozen. So next, what we're going to do is we're going to add carefully to our candle. So the different types of beeswax, or the different types of wax, I am not a stickler because I recognize that not everyone has access to beeswax, or specifically beeswax candles. But it's completely up to you. I love working with beeswax candles. I have a magical association with them. They smell incredible. So I work with them whenever I possibly can. But it's just not always possible for people. So whatever you have access to, if they're organic candles that are hand poured, that's wonderful. And if you only have access to candles that you can buy on Amazon, that's okay too. Whatever you have and need is totally fine, as long as your intentions are focused and you allow yourself to kind of get into it. And we're really adding to this candle also. So we're going to be adding to it magically with all of the different things that we're incorporating. So now that we have our little blend here, our little Imbolc candle blend, go back down here. And so the way that I like to do this is I'm going to kind of move the larger pieces aside, but I'm going to grab a nice little pinch. And so again, there's no wrong or right way to do this, but one of the ways that I like to do this is to go clockwise. So when we go clockwise, we're thinking of pulling things to us. When we move clockwise around, the symbology of that is that we're pulling things into completion. When we go counterclockwise, We are releasing things, right? We're letting things go. We're allowing things to move away from us, not towards us. So now that I have a little pinch of what we're working with here, we're going to go ahead and we're going to add this to our candle clockwise. And you can see, I know it might be hard to see because our light is pretty intense, but I'm not adding very much. I'll show you how much I'm adding, just enough to dress it. So you don't have to add too much. You can add just a little pinch like that. If you want to add, again, essential oils, any of that good stuff, it's totally up to you. It really just depends on what feels right for you. For me, I'm feeling pretty good with this candle right now. I feel pretty good. And again, anytime we add something to a candle, it's also always a good idea to keep in mind, regardless, don't let candles burn unattended, specifically ones that have been dressed, because again, they do have flammable things attached to them. So, it's not a good idea. So now our candle's dressed, right? We're good to go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set these babies off to the side over here on the altar, because they're not going to be able to be used until our lantern has been made. And that's what we're going to do right now. So when you see how we're going to do this, you're probably going to laugh at me, and that's okay. The process of making it doesn't look super cool, but when it's done, it's very cool. So follow me, come on this journey with me. Yes, remember, good point, Debbie. Oil is also very flammable. Use it very sparingly. One of the things that you can even do if you're worried is to add oil to the bottom of candles instead of the top of candles. It's totally up to you, but always be very careful. I think it's a good idea just to think anything you ever add to a candle when you're dressing candles, less is always more. And always double check things. Double check what you can Google, double check what kind of oils are really flammable, what kind of oils are safe to work with when we're talking about candles, which sort of essential oils are also safe. And again, less is more. You don't need to have, it looks very beautiful and it looks very witchy, but you don't have to have, tons and tons and tons of candles. If you're doing a ritual that's outside and, you have lots of space, you can probably enjoy yourself and make the witchiest, cool looking candles ever, as long as you have, water near you and you're not super worried about, burning anything down that's in direct, contact with where you are. But always be careful. Okay. All right. Get ready to laugh at me. This is the least aesthetic thing you'll ever see me. I wish there was a cooler way to do this. So what we're going to do is we have an ugly Tupperware container. All right, let's go. Let's go on this journey. I'm going to tilt you guys back down again so you can see what I'm doing. We're going to be creating a lantern. And the idea is that this is the container for it. So the container for the lantern needs to have two spots or one spot, depending on how many candles you want to burn, that will leave you space for your candles. So for this, I have 2 glasses. We're going to go ahead and place them inside of the Tupperware container. I'm sure that you can find much witchier, much cooler looking ways to do this, but sometimes it's okay to just use what you have. So the idea is we're going to fill this container up with water, probably close to the tops of the glass. If not a little bit lower than that, it's totally up to you. It depends on how high you want your lantern to be. So the idea is these cups are going to be wiggled out once everything is nice and frozen. And we're going to have 2 empty spots. And then we're going to be able to, and the reason that I've chosen Tupperware and the reason that I like working with the Tupperware is once we let it melt a little bit when it's frozen, it's a lot easier than glass to kind of poop up and like start wiggling it out. So we can actually flip it over and you'll have the perfect shape in ice that you can then actually put your candles into. And so let's see, I did write something here for this because I think it's kind of cool. So for Imbolc candle lanterns, for Imbolc, these 2 elements of water and fire play a very special role in the turning of the seasons. So As we move through the coldest months of the year, fire encased in ice reminds us that the return of light and the hope and promise of spring are ours. So this is a really, again, very simple way to just, if you've no other plans for Imbolc, this is a very simple way to do it. So, and we're going to make it look cute. So add your 2 cups. Again, want to make sure that the size of the cups are going to be big enough for your candles. So are they? Yes, we're good. So our first step, and this is what I've done, is I collected some snow today because it did snow, and I let it melt. So we've got our little jug full of water. This is, again, snow. If you want, you can go and collect water from your, natural water source. Maybe you have a spring that's close by. If not, you can use any kind of water that you need. I just kind of I'm a big fan of water that kind of, whether it's water that hasn't kind of gone through a pipe, just naturally occurring water. If you can get your hands on some of that, you're great. If you can't, don't worry about it. Don't stress. So what we're going to do first is we're going to go ahead and add our water. So again, this is melted snow from today. Does anybody have to pee? Don't worry. We got this. I'm going to add... So one of the things you might want to do, like my glasses are doing right now, is grab a couple. I'm going to grab 2 crystals, actually. I had a feeling that they were going to be too buoyant. Let me grab. This is going to look so hilarious. It's kind of perfect, actually. We're going to go ahead and we're going to take these 2 amethyst babies, and we're going to set them right inside to hold our buoyant glasses down. There we go. Plus, then you get that extra crystally energy. Let's see. Everybody's so quiet because you guys are watching. I'm going to add a little bit more water. I think that's going to be good for me. So I'm going to stick with that size. So as you can imagine, when the lantern comes out, that's going to be about the height of it. You can go bigger than that. You can go smaller. It's totally up to you. So what do we want to do? Well, we want to imbue the water. So now we know that we have this snow that literally fell today. It's already magical and wonderful. We want to add some lovely herbs to our snow. So I grabbed a couple sprigs of lavender because lavender is obviously my favorite flower on the face of the planet. And it's one that I like working with. It's so funny. Everybody went dead quiet for like 5 minutes. And I was like, did I lose? I was just going. I kept going, but I was like, did I lose signal or anything like that? Okay, good. I'm glad to know that everybody's there. So you absolutely, if you want, you can work with plastic glasses. These 2 glasses specifically, I know won't break because we had them forever and they've been frozen a million times. But if you're comfortable with that, or if you're worried about the glass breaking, absolutely, you can use some plastic glasses or some mason jars. Those are really lovely ideas. Okay, so we're gonna add some lavender. And as you can imagine, when this starts to freeze and when this freezes by tomorrow, it's going to look really beautiful. You're going to have frozen flowers in the middle of all of your beautiful lantern light, just kind of twinkling. You can add whatever kind of herbs you want. I'm sticking with some of my favorites. So we have lavender to represent peace. I'm going to actually take one of the sprigs and I'm going to break it at the base, and I'm just going to submerge it because it's going to look really beautiful. Once that freezes, we'll get it right in there. Again, it's pretty good rule of thumb to think that most of your flowers and most of your herbs are going to float. So imagine that you're going to be able to see these at the very, very top. So I've got 1 sprig of lavender on one side. We'll get one going on the other, and then we'll take our last one and we'll add some more petals and just really, and as you do this, no action in magic is mundane. Everything we do is magical, even if it's just the symbology of what we're doing. So as I'm adding to this, I'm thinking, and I'm thinking a lot about like how excited I am for some of the projects that we have that are coming out, and the inception of some new ideas that we've been talking a lot about, and the joy and happiness of family and community, and everyone kind of finding that space within themselves, and just the joy of this time of year. All right, so we have our lavender added. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some bay leaves. We talked a lot about bay earlier because there's going to be bay leaves on our candles, but I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to kind of submerge some pieces in here. And again, as we talked about, bay is all about manifestation, wish magic, all that kind of good stuff. So it's a lovely addition to this pretty simple combination, but absolutely unbelievable combination. So I'm going to crush some up. Let's see, try to read your comments. Yay, that's a whole, I see, I think let's see who it was. Was Tanya said, Dana, I love this. I would love to see you do more of this type of thing. That's my whole goal, is to really start to, now that I have the space for it and I have the ability to do it, to really start incorporating a lot more of this very, very practical magic to these classes, because it's more fun than just, sitting, watching someone talk. Plus it's fun for me too. And I love the act of magic itself. So more of this is fun. Yes, rosebuds, anything you want. Let's see. Yes, Elizabeth, non-toxic food coloring. There's tons of it. There's vegan food coloring. There's also vegan sparkles that aren't those horrible sparkles that destroy the ocean and are little chunks of plastic. So if you go online, you can find like organic vegan sparkles. You can add anything that you want, pretty much. You can pretty much find out there. All right, so this is going to be the last of my bay that's going in. I think I'm going to call that good. So at this point, it looks kind of weird. It doesn't smell weird. It smells so good. I wish we could do a smell-o-vision, because it smells fantastic. So let me tip you back up again. I'll give you the profile so you can see what we're doing here, right? So at this point, you can add essential oils to your water, or to the water. You can add, again, like we mentioned, that non-toxic food coloring, vegan sparkles that won't kill our environment and sit at the bottom of the ocean forever. There's lots of different things that you can add to this at this point. Again, I see Jen say juniper berries. Who was it? Someone else said, Elizabeth. Someone said they were going to add roses. It's perfect. And add as much to it as you want, as much as you're comfortable with. And so if you have access to an outdoor space, what I'm going to do tonight, I'm going to actually leave this outside, so that underneath our beautiful night full moon, I'm going to let this lantern baby charge up and freeze. And then at some point tomorrow, one of the things usually that I like to do is I will I'll bring it in, and because everything's going to be good and frozen, you want to let it sit for like 10, 15 minutes. Let it start to just sort of begin to dethaw. Then you can start wiggling your cups out slowly. And once you're at that point, because we have it in this plastic container, you can kind of give it a good squeeze and flip it over, and you literally, you've got your lantern. And then you can, if you want, you can do an outdoor altar, you can do an indoor altar if you've got something safe that you can kind of let it melt under. But you just now that we have our candles all dressed and they're good to go, tomorrow, once our lantern's done, you just add your beautiful lights to your lantern. And it is a simple, really easy, fun way to do a very simple Imbolc ritual that it looks beautiful, it smells beautiful. It's really fun. If you have kids, you can do it with your kids. You can do it with your friends. You can wow your friends with some cool ice lanterns. And again, it incorporates all of the elements that we talked a lot about tonight. All of those elements of Imbolc that are so beautiful and so powerful are really represented here in this specific ritual. So I hope that you do this ritual. It's super fun. And we've done a version of something like this in Magic of the Month a few years ago, actually. And it was really fun. It was really beautiful. So this is a really simple way to celebrate Imbolc. So again, remember, you have a few weeks until Imbolc. You can do this as many times as you want. This isn't just a specific thing to this time of year. If you really love the way it looks and it feels, you can make as many lanterns as you'd like. But this is just a really lovely way that I like to kind of celebrate this time of year, because it just feels very magical. So yeah, if you want, you've got a few weeks. If you're planning on doing it for an Imbolc ritual, you've got a few weeks. But if you want to just kind of give it a shot, you can do that too. It's fun. It's pretty easy to do, and it's just sort of like playing. If your sizing is weird, try it again, and with different shaped cups. And a lot of people can make, they'll make larger ones and they'll use mason jars and all that kind of good stuff. So it's a simple, really beautiful, but equally powerful way to kind of create something magical and then be able to enjoy it, because it looks incredibly gorgeous afterwards. So I'm so excited. I hope that you guys try this, because I would love to see yours. I'm going to freeze mine tonight, as I mentioned, under the full moon. And I will take photos of it tomorrow once it's out. I'm going to do a little outdoor altar, I think, tomorrow, and hope that the snow lasts a few more days. But yeah, I'll do a little outdoor altar and take some photos so that you can see what it looks like tomorrow. But I'm really excited. It's kind of fun because, again, I was collecting the snow for a little while today to make sure that I had enough of it. So now we've got all of the elements kind of working together. So that's it for today's class. I'm really loving including as much of the practical fun stuff as I can, and kind of showing you. And like very soon, even just the setup will be a lot spiffier, and you'll be able to see what I'm doing a lot easier. It won't be me kind of tilting the camera down and stuff like that. So I'm really excited about that. The future of Magic of the Month classes, I think, gonna become a very, very cool, really fun and interactive thing. But I'm really enjoying getting to practice this way with you guys. It's super fun. So yeah, give it a shot, make your lanterns, and then post pictures, because I want to see them, please. Yeah, work with different shapes. Look for different, maybe you can find like cool containers that are star shaped, or like whatever kinds of shapes are reflective of how you feel about this time of year. So yes, please try this, and let me see your beautiful lanterns, ice lanterns, because I'm excited about it. Oh, look, there's a hair. Oh, look, it's still attached to my head. This is what it's like living with me. Greg finds these like 8-foot long hairs in his butt crack all the time. But yeah, I'm sure that this is a really great way to end class. So as I have here, I wrote end of class. I wrote moving with the wheel of the year and acknowledging each passing season for its gifts can allow us to be more fully present in our lives each and every day. Winter becomes magical on its own, with spring and summer appreciated more fully. It is not always an easy thing to appreciate winter. So celebrating Imbolc is a really lovely way. If you don't follow the wheel of the year, if Imbolc has never really been a celebration or a Sabbath that you've been interested in practicing, because it's kind of one of the lesser interesting ones, give it a shot. And this is a simple way to do that. So thanks, everybody. Thanks for hanging out. I hope that you have an incredible rest of the month, and I'll obviously see you again very soon. And Magic of the Month is shipping pretty early this month, so we will have stuff hitting the mail stream very soon. And I can't wait for you to get it. I'm so excited. All right. Have a lovely rest of your Monday evening, and I will see you in the group probably very soon. Good night, everyone. I will post some pictures tomorrow, but make those lanterns. I want to see them. Sweet dreams.